Hello and welcome to the Ditton Works YouTube channel. Today is going to be a slightly different one. I'm going to talk about an experience I've had today that has really shocked me in a certain way. Realistically, I need to tell you a bit of a story. When I was very young, I remember spending probably a weekend at my grandmother's house, and she didn't have any toys or anything kicking around, so it was sometimes boring. She liked to cook in the kitchen, which I like to eat the produce of said cooking, but there weren't any toys. I was very young. I could play with the dog in the garden, throw the ball. Eventually the dog would get fed up with that. So I needed something to do, and I asked my gran if I could listen to some music. And she said I could, but I would have to wear headphones because she didn't necessarily want to hear it. So I turned everything on, and this is the first time I'd probably used a record player, but I roughly knew what I was doing, and started flicking through records. I hadn't got a clue what I was looking for. The bulk of it all was classical music, which I knew nothing about, but I come across an album cover with a picture of Saturn on it. And being, even as a kid, fascinated by space, I thought, I'll give this one a go. Put the record on, headphones on, big old pair of Philips, I think they were, headphones, and listened to this phenomenal piece of music, which was obviously Holst, the planet's Mars. And I listened to that over and over and over again. I never got any further into that piece at all. I just kept bringing it back to Mars. Skip forward a few years, and I remember being in an assembly at primary school, and our headmaster used to often play a piece of music for us to walk into before we all assembled. And that particular morning was Mars. And I thought, I recognise this. This is fantastic, this piece of music. And this is probably before I'd seen the likes of Star Wars. So that piece of music used to evoke all kinds of images in your imagination of quite literally battles in space. And I remember asking him what it was after the assembly, and he told me, and I made sure I remembered it, and I have remembered it for the rest of my life. I love Holst the Planets. I've even got Duke Ellington's Jazz Planets. I've even streamed some of the other versions of it. But today, I went to a charity shop and I thought I'd pick myself up some alternative copies of the planets, because there'll all be different recordings, there'll all be different composers, different orchestras. I mean, this one, for argument's sake, is the Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra, which I wasn't expecting to be any good, but it is rather good. But what actually happened to me today is, throughout my previous ones, so I think the original one I heard at my gran's all those years ago is this quite famous one by Adrian Bolt. So I've got a copy of that, and then I bought what I thought was a different pressing of that, which is just a different label. There's not actually anything different with that. And my favourite one of all of mine has been this one, which is Sir Malcolm Sargent, and it's the BBC Orchestra. And this I always thought sounded great. And when I read on the back, it said it was originally recorded by EMI and is available under a different label, ASD 269. Well, by complete accident, today I picked that particular one up. It was in a now the sleeve is a little bit dog-eared, but the vinyl itself was immaculate. I've given it a clean and I played that today, and either one of two things has happened here. Either finally my Autophon 2M black cartridge has bedded in, because that has been a bit of a struggle. When I first used that, I honestly thought the 2M blue was actually sounding better, and the 2M blues had probably a couple of 100 hours worth of use on it and was set up by my hi-fi shop, so it was good pretty much straight out the bat, and I was enjoying it. Put the 2 levels upgraded, so it goes red, blue, bronze, black. I've gone to the black, which should be a significant upgrade. I was rather disappointed. However, today, a combination of probably the best recording I've heard of Holst the Planets, and the fact that that cartridge has bedded in, I was getting goosebumps, tears coming down my eyes. It was just amazing to listen to. which then led me on to just revisit some of these other pressings. So if we go through these again, the Bournemouth one actually wasn't bad. It was enjoyable to listen to. The performance was good, but possibly not my favourite. What I'm then going to jump to is what my least favourite is, which everybody suspected was going to be great, which is the Deutsche Grammophon Gustav Holst. That is a digital to analog recording, and I don't actually like that. That's very hard sounding vinyl. Even now I've got everything really well set up, that really is hard sounding. That actually to me sounds worse than the CD. Then we come up to the Adrian Bolt, which is very good. It's a very listenable performance, but I have to say that realistically, these BBC ones, the BBC absolutely knocked it out of the park with that. It's phenomenal. It's so emotional. It's so good. I was absolutely, it felt like I was listening to the live performance. Which brings me on to this, which is the Los Angeles Philharmonic Orchestra Zubin Mehta Decca recordings, which is in conjunction, I read somewhere, with the German one. So in conjunction with that, but this sounds fantastic. Very different performance. And it's just so interesting to, in all honesty, for once, not to be talking about the equipment, that everything has settled in. The new tube I put in the phono stage. So I've got a Vincent PHO 700, I think it is. And I put a Telefunken new old stock tube in. That's well and truly running. I've been playing about for the past 4 or 5 days with different mats, different head shells, different cartridges, different settings, playing about with everything I could. And today I think I got that completely dialed in. Tube must be completely running. Cartridge has finally settled down. And for once I got to really enjoy a particular performance. And I thought that was just worth sharing, because Holst the Planets, it means so much to me on multiple levels. For argument's sake, my grandmother's husband, he was a avid astronomer who set up one of the first astronomical societies in Ipswich. That astronomical society is still going. My father has a huge interest in space travel. I could probably phone him now and he could tell me where Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 probably are. I have a keen interest in space. I was an amateur astronomer and had deep interest in cosmology. That aside, the musical element of this is Holst's interpretation of what the planets were really like is fantastic. I appreciate he's written that music in the Roman interpretation of the planets, the bringer of war, so on and so on and so on. We know that there is no battles going on Mars right at the minute, not that I know of anyway, but that piece of music holds so much sentimental value to me that I really enjoyed my hi-fi today, purely because I found a decent copy, decent record for 50 pence at a charity shop that took all of 2 or 3 minutes to clean properly, and then I spent however long that is listening to it and thoroughly enjoying it. So I thought I would just share that experience with you guys today, because it isn't always about the equipment, or it shouldn't always be about the equipment, even though I spend most of my time on these videos talking about equipment. But if you've really got that dialed in the way you want it to, you should really all experience the music in that fantastic way. You should be able to sit back, listen and enjoy it, rather than it being constant scrutiny of the pieces of equipment, which I actually enjoy doing. I don't mind doing that, but sometimes, and particularly with this vinyl setup, I've gone round and round in circles. I've made it better, then sometimes worse. It's remained the same. You know, I'm constantly checking, am I doing this properly? You know, is the VTA settings right? Is, you know, the cartridge in the right alignment? Meticulously checking everything, going all through the forums to see what everybody else is saying, and eventually got it right myself, using some of the advice, I've got to admit, from various other people. But Today was all about the music, and I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to it. Take care, guys. Catch up with you soon.